We're going to get started in just a second, everyone. Today it's myself and Barry Mingo is our guest speaker today, but we're going to go ahead and get started in just about 30 seconds. So if you need a quick cup of coffee or a water, and you should be able to hear us, you should be able to see us right now. I got John is typing a message. Go ahead. You're going to be able to chat with us in the chat box. When we get over 50 people, we generally will have Chris Robinson, who some of you might know as our Dearborn salesperson. He becomes our super moderator and will be moderating those text chats. And so he'll push really all the relevant questions up to Barry and I, and we should be able to grab a bunch of your questions today as we go through this. So, but Chris is going to help us moderate that. And it looks like we're up to 52 attendees. And we're going to get started. Good morning, Joy. Good morning, John, Ivania. Good morning. All right. So what I'll do is we'll do a small countdown. We're going to record this, everybody. So just so you know, you're going to record it. The other thing you should know is that we're going to ask a couple polling questions during this presentation. The polling questions are all anonymous, so you don't have to worry about your names out there or anything, but just have fun with them. And but we are recording this so that you can actually go and watch a copy of this later. If you got to leave for any reason, in about a week, you're going to get an email with the link to this presentation in it. So you should be in good shape. And you can, distribute it. If some of you have other instructors who might want to watch it or other people, you can do that. All right, look at that. Barry's already playing along. I love it.
Yeah, man.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and do a countdown. We're going to get started in about 10 seconds, everybody. 10 seconds. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Toby Schifsky with Dearborn Real Estate Education. And with me today for our Dearborn Partner webinar is Barry Mingo. And today's topic is live online instructing, right? You want your instructors doing these things. And really what I got to do is I've got to introduce Barry to you. Barry and I actually go back a long way, but no, you can't give up any secrets, though, Barry.
No, I won't. I promise.
So Barry was licensed in 2001 and started teaching really real estate licensing education 6 months later. And that was a little shop in Minnesota where I was. In fact, I started teaching there in 2002, and Barry and I went through a lot of the same courses and taught a lot of the same classes. We're part of the same team for many years, right, Barry?
Yes, sir. That's right, man.
Yeah. And then Barry kind of stayed full within the real estate industry and started his own, he brokered up his license in 2004, started his own brokerage, kind of really never looked back. In fact, just merged into a new brokerage now, who he's very excited about. And one thing, Barry, was we were talking before this presentation because sometimes people don't look back enough and really kind of understand the impact that you may have had through your teaching career, not just your real estate, but your teaching career. And I think we came up with that you've taught over 60,000 licensing students real estate licensing education in your career.
Yeah, I've been in front of a lot of people, man, I'm telling you. So I run into a lot of people out in the field too that are still in the business. So it's fun to run into former students. It really is.
Absolutely. And so, and one of the things that Barry and I agree on, very much so, is that the strength of a real estate, instructing team or a person even is if it's just a one-person shop and you're the only one doing the teaching, or if you have a team of instructors, there's a key to consistency and a consistency of product that lends itself to really consistency of sales, consistency of experiences, consistency of student outcomes. And one of the things Barry is in charge of for me, just so you know, full disclosure, Barry is a real estate licensing lead instructor on our Kaplan real estate education side of the business and leads our quality enhancement program for a group of instructors who teach licensing in the state of Minnesota. And Barry, that's where we met. I mean,
right.
was it 2002, we were going through a quality enhancement program, which is really new instructor training.
Yeah.
And it was all about consistency. We had the same crazy instructor, Denton C., that taught us like really everything there was to know about licensing instruction. And so for everybody here today, we're going to cover some stuff that, you may want to incorporate into a consistency, a training program, even if it's for yourself or for your other instructors. And we're going to go pretty fast. We have 30 minutes and we're going to hit it quick. You're going to be able to ask questions as we go along. And like I said, Chris Robinson's here to help us out. He will be bubbling some of those questions up to us. But we're going to go ahead and jump in because I know everybody here is interested in live online education. Some of you have come from in-person education and are now doing live online. And some of you are thinking about going back into in-person or have already gone back. But here's the key. I can tell you that from a Kaplan perspective, we're concentrating heavily on live online. We find that there's a lot of advantages to live online, some of it being cost and some of it being the student experience. In fact, I have a philosophy that we're actually going to be able to deliver a pretty fantastic learning experience. I know Barry's nodding his head along the way because he does it. This is what he does. Barry, you taught in-person classroom for decades, right?
Right.
2 decades?
Yep, 20 plus.
20 plus years, right? And now you're doing everything in a live environment, right? What do you think the key to success, that conversion? Because I know last year at this time we were in the thick of switching everything to live online. Had to, otherwise we're out of the live business, right?
Right.
What do you feel, for yourself has been the biggest, hardest challenge going from in-person to live online? What have you found to be the big challenge?
Well, live classroom is what it is. You've got your same setups and everything like that. You've got to get your PowerPoints ready and your whiteboards and you find your attendance sheets and all that stuff. The live online classroom has a lot of the same issues in that you've got to get your PowerPoints pulled up from storage. You've got to get your break timer set up. And then, of course, I think the biggest thing with live online is knowing the technology, okay? And getting comfortable with the technology in the classroom. And once you do that, then you can do what you do, and that is instruct.
Got it. So I'm an in-person classroom instructor. There's a few things you got to do, right? You got to come in. You got to make sure if you're doing overhead projector, the projector works. You got your PowerPoints. That's about the extent of the technology. Maybe a microphone, right? Lavalier microphone, something that you're going to be able to broadcast in a big space. Make sure the classroom's set up right, tables, chairs, right? Where the bathrooms are. But in live online, you not only do you have to know all the material, all the content, but without technology, you're out of business, right? Without the technology running smoothly and without you knowing how to operate the technology, you're out of business, right?
Right. Well, and here's the thing. I mean, you're going to have enough technical glitches on, just with the platform that it runs on itself, if they're not connected to Chrome or their internet isn't strong, you're going to always have those underlying background issues. And if you're not familiar as an instructor, and whether it be in this platform, Zoom meetings, Google Meetup, you've always got to make sure that you know your technology before you go there to teach, because the last thing you want is a befuddled instructor, because that creates a befuddled student as well. So
right on. Let me do this. I want to find out, Barry, we've got over 50 people on here today. Okay. And in fact, we're over 60 now. I want to go ahead and I'm going to just poll everybody. You're going to get a chance to play along here. I'm going to find out who's here. I want to find out if you're an instructor. We've invited school operators. We've invited instructors. I want to find out who's here. So play along with us here. I'm going to put up a poll, and I'd love to have you all participate here. So question number 1, ready? I have been the principal instructor for in-person education, live online education, or I have not instructed before. I'm sure we're going to have people in all categories, but really like to know what you've done. And you can answer more than one, the FYI. So if you're doing both, then click on both. Go right ahead. So we understand what's going on. And I'm going to go ahead, look at Ivania. I like it, live online and in person. Right on. All right, folks. So I'm going to go ahead. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All right. So I'm going to share the results. Look at this. So we've got like half the people have done in-person before, and half the people have, 43% have done live online education before. I'm sure there's some overlap in there, but not everybody has done both, clearly. And so we've got some people here, I'm believing, who are looking at doing live online. And we've got other people here, Barry, who probably have taught as much or more live online than you. I'm sure we're going to be able to get some nuggets out of them. And then, by the way, if you're one of those experts and you want to share, go ahead and chat, your comments along with us here. So, all righty, let's go ahead. We're going to move on because I think the key here is, and we see it all the time. I think everybody knows we push hundreds of students through live online every single week, and technology. It's the number one issue. And the funny thing is we know it when it's our issue, and if it's a platform issue, right? We also know it when it's a student issue with internet connectivity, or they're on their phone and they're walking around and they're trying to get, but nothing is worse, really, truly, I think, Barry, I think we agree on this. Nothing is worse than when the instructor doesn't know how to use the technology.
Absolutely right. So, I mean, it's just like anything. And those of you who have done public speaking before know that if you don't prepare and know your material and everything like that, it's not going to go very well for you, because, again, every classroom has its own personality, and you have to be able to gauge and find what that personality is. And if you're more concerned and more tasked with the technology and everything that needs to be done, it's just going to create more of a headache for you as an instructor in terms of delivering the content properly.
Right. So what are you doing to make sure that your instructors know the technology? What are you doing because I've seen it. I've been there. I've been in the class. I've been in a situation where you're all hooked up and dialed in. I mean, we had people here an hour early waiting to get into this, right? And they come in and they're ready. And so they don't want a delay. They don't want an instructor not able to find a poll, not able to get a PowerPoint up there. And what happens to a class when an instructor doesn't know the technology? That's where that connectivity kind of falls apart. Is that what you're saying?
Right. So again, with our quality enhancement program, I mean, let's put it this way: an instructor doesn't get into the platform and start teaching unless they absolutely. I mean, they will run a mock class in front of me first and their peers, because we invite other instructors to watch. And then, and I just let them teach, we let them go. And then after 45 minutes, we stop and we say, okay, here's some improvements. Here's where you were struggling here. This is how you fix that. Okay. So and we encourage them to practice too. They can come in the class and practice.
Got it. Got it. So you're doing dry runs. You're running out scenarios. You're not throwing anybody out to the wolves, because that is, I'll tell everybody, our number one complaint is if the instructor doesn't know the technology, the students instantly detach from the experience. And it's different when you're in a live classroom, right? I mean, an in-person classroom, there's a connectivity that happens not only amongst the instructor and the students, because clearly you're in charge of the class, you're up in front of the classroom, and students come up and ask you a question on break, or they can work through issues and stuff, and they can even talk quickly with other students if there's a problem, if something wasn't clear. But in a live online environment, what are the tools how are you making sure people are connecting? Because not only do you need to know the technology, but the technology has to be able to assist in connecting with the students. Because this is the second, I think, most important thing is, how do you create this sense of community that you get in an in-person classroom in a live online environment? I mean, and do you need to do that? I mean, our curriculum has we have a lot of opportunities for students to answer multiple choice questions and true false questions, and then also too, as an instructor, I mean, I will call people out by their first name. Like, for example, if we got John that asked a question about, littoral rights or something, John, that's a very valid question, and I'll address the students by their first name. Or
we'll have students that go, you know what, I got knocked out for a little bit here and I don't know what was on line 5. Could you tell me what was on line 5? I'll ask the classroom, can anybody help Jill with what was on line 5? Okay, so we take time to talk to the students, address them by their first name, look in the camera when we're talking to them so that they connect with us. And you will find that over time, if you're having a conversation with them, they'll start chatting with you. And again, we've got this online connectivity, which is amazing.
So I think you covered kind of 3 things there that I found important, right? I mean, you hit them pretty fast, but number 1, call people by their first name.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, let them know. Like even right now, we've got an issue, right? So somebody's name is showing up in the text chat here who's not in here, and so we're having people that maybe don't even have the right name. You got to be able to find that out, that's showing up properly. I got Fred asking questions, how to find a book, YouTube that covers techniques needed for online teaching. Fred, this is an important piece. So important that we're actually creating a course, a 4-hour course for live online teaching techniques to be offered through Dearborn. The same way we did it for in-person. How about that? How great is our timing? We did the 4-hour in-person teaching techniques course that can be used in Florida for a requirement and used in South Carolina for a requirement, can be used by anybody as a teaching technique, which is available through Dearborn right now. We created it. It's for in-person. And then COVID hits as soon as it comes out. And now we're creating the live online course, which will be available not until the spring of 2022. But it will be about all those teaching techniques. There are resources out there. There are places out there that you can go, Fred. But let me get back to where Barry was here on a couple things, because I think it's important. And I know we talk to instructors all the time about the difference between in-person and online or distance education, especially live online. I'm going to start with the last thing you said, which was eye contact. Uh-huh. It's really hard. Sometimes, like right now, you and I are talking to a screen that I just see me and you on the screen, right? And I don't see the students. And there's a lot of environments where the instructors aren't going to see the students. But I tell people all the time, you've absolutely got to be aware that when you're in an in-person classroom, it's a one-to-many approach, right? You're reading everybody's faces, right? But when you're on a computer, I'm literally sitting here and I'm talking to you at your desk. Mm-hmm. And it's incredibly important that I make contact with you, right? So that they feel a connectivity with the instructor. And then you said, not only that, but then I'll use the person's name, right? If they ask a question or they make a point, I'll make sure to call that person out and say, well done, da-da-da-da, right? Encourage the right behavior. You don't want to encourage poor behavior, obviously, with your text chats. But, and then you said one more thing, which I thought was very interesting is, because I know this, when you're in an in-person classroom, people create a kind of a social connectivity where they sit down the first day of class and they're quiet as a church mouse, right? And they're looking around, they don't know anybody. And by the end of the first break, they maybe said hi to the person next to them, and maybe even they come up and said hi to the instructor. But what happens like on the second day, right? When these people come back after a full day of being in an in-person class, they go to the same seat, right? I mean, and what's the difference in the energy level in an in-person classroom?
Well, I'll tell you what. So I teach all 90 hours up here in Minnesota for course 1 pre-licensing, and day 1, course 1, session 1 is just so quiet. And even in the afternoon, it's. But I'll tell you what. By the time we get to course 3, it's just almost a riot. I have to, hey guys, calm down, And these people, they make connections. They're talking. They have a lot of fun.
How do you do that in a live online environment? Because that's a part of what people remember, right? They remember that experience, that connectivity. That sometimes they form friendships that last entire careers who come to their in-person classes. How do you do that in a live online environment?
Well, and again, depending on what your regulations and stuff, I mean, we don't allow the students to activate their microphones or their cameras because we just can't. I mean, it just gets it bogs down the technology and everything like that. But I really encourage it through questions, like, for example, I've been just watching some of your guys' chat in here and stuff. And there's a lot of good things in there. Like, for example, I might say, Martha makes a good point, about looking at the camera and everything like that. Wouldn't you agree, Gail, that we do this? And before you know it, Gail and Martha are communicating, and I mean, really, if you just personalize it and group them. So I give group hugs sometimes, man, I do. And
group hugs.
Yeah, they go, come on, class. Right?
Well, so this gets to the part where I said there are so many tools in a live online environment, right? No matter what platform you use, there are tools. There are, like in this platform, there are breakout rooms where you can have people go discuss case scenarios and studies, and they get to know people individually, and it's just them on their video, right? And they actually get to have video at that time, and they can talk and they can hear their voices. I liked what you said earlier, which was, you know what, if somebody asks a question, maybe it's in chat or something comes up, and I'll say, hey, could somebody help out, you know, Gail? Gail has a question on group hugs. Could somebody find out where that is in the book and just, you know, give Gail the answer? And the next thing, because you got helpers, right? People like to help in an in-person classroom. You got those helpers, and you got to look out because they can sometimes take over a class, right? If they're helping too much. Yeah. But in a live online environment, you know, you can moderate that. The playing field is leveled, but you can still get students to interact with each other. And even though you know the answer, you can ask people to solve a problem for another student, and they start to get connected and they start to chat. I know this, when we first started Live Online, Barry, we were deathly afraid of allowing students to chat.
Oh gosh, I remember. Yeah.
Remember that?
Yep, so, I do.
And that was a mistake, because yeah, you'll get some people who will abuse, but here's the difference though. If you're doing licensing education, or especially if you're doing continuing education, we know everything about the people in our courses, right? We've got their addresses, their names, sometimes they have their social security numbers, we got their credit cards. They don't really mess around, right? Do they? I mean, have you found that I haven't found that.
No.
All right. So I know we're cruising along. We got some time. All right. And one thing I should just point out, and I probably should have done this at the beginning. So is there's live online education can be both regulated and unregulated, and there's kind of different rules that have to follow along there. And so, you know, be aware of in your state what the rules are. But sometimes if it's unregulated, there's many more things you can do than if it's a regulated live experience, meaning that it's governed by the regulator, and you have to follow all the little checks and balances, engagement, and I know we talked about moderators in your team, and because you work in a state where they have to have attendance monitored all the time by a moderator, right?
Right.
And so that's a part of prepping your team for live online also, correct?
Yeah, you know, I mean, so for us, if a student, they've got to be there the entire 30 hours, you know, or 90 if they're doing all 3 courses, and the moderator makes sure that happens. And if they get booted from the class and they're gone for 5 minutes because they couldn't log back in, the moderator is going to notate that just to make sure they don't lose their time, you know, the amount of time in there. So these are things that you have to communicate if you're in a moderated state. So there's so many variations that live online presents too. Got it.
All right. So if I'm, let me ask you a question. What do you do if you have a quiet or non-compliant group, right? What do you do if you have if you're trying to create an environment in a community? I mean, what do you do? How do you get them to engage?
Well, so let's go with non-compliant first. I mean, we've got, you know, in some of our classrooms, they've got a polling question that they have to answer. What's your favorite fruit? And they got 90 seconds to do it. They don't know how long they have. They just know they've got to answer it. And I tell them it shouldn't take you longer than 10 seconds. And if it does, you're not paying attention. So sometimes you'll have to have that meeting with them. Guys, I love you, but here's what we got going on. You're going to get booted from class if you don't answer these questions. Our goal is to make sure you get all the credit that you need to get licensed. So pay attention to that. As far as quiet groups go, I'd say, look, guys, you know, it doesn't cost you anything to play along. And the more you play along, the more questions that you answer, the more active you get in our chat, the more you're going to learn. And that's what it's all about, making it learn so you can pass that all very important test that you're going to be dealing with. Okay?
So I know that some of our best instructors are really creating a learning adventure. And this is the part where I have school operators, and some are on this presentation, that come and said, you know, we're looking at going back to in-person education, and we might continue to do live online, and which is great. Do whatever works in your marketplace, whatever works for you. But they said, why would I continue to do live online? And those are the school operators. And I can tell you this, we have instructors, right? That Barry works with them. Barry is one of them, where they create a learning adventure. And this is the part where it's a little bit controversial, but I firmly believe that the live online environment can be a better learning experience than in person for a couple different reasons. And I'm going to ask you kind of to respond to this, Barry, but I know that there's some challenges with in-person education. One of them is, facility, location, temperature, right? A travel time for people to get there. Not only that, but then logistics and all this kind of stuff. And I also get that there's limitations on the live online side for technology, right? I mean, you're without technology, you're out of business on the live online. I get that. Mm-hmm. But the technology side on the live online allows for a lot of different things, like polling questions, right? I think I had Gail, say on here, the polling questions are key. And they're fun because the polling questions can be fun, but they can also be knowledge checks. Did people really get what I'm talking about? Do they really understand the point? And as an instructor, I would love to be able to check in. And I saw earlier somebody had chatted about Kahoots, right? Which is that online, kind of like a gaming platform for asking people questions, and they can play on their phone. And to use those kind of tools, not only as engagement tools, but as knowledge checks to make sure you're actually doing your job as the instructor, I think are just a part of the slew of tools. I think of if we wanted to push out a link to a website and set everybody on a little field trip, maybe even to their own real estate commission's website to look up a fact, right? So that they get trained on how to go to that website. We can do that here, right? I can push out a link. I can send out a message. Heck, I can send out a PDF. I can send out a PowerPoint. I can drop it so everybody has the same information at the same time and really lead a learning experience.
And I mean, hey, as long as you're prepared as an instructor, I mean, we've got all our instructors, we've got like a cheat sheet for them that we've got a link to our Department of Commerce, right, where they need to, and the Pearson VUE website to take the tests. If they didn't get what their Minnesota booklet or their national book, we can drop that into chat for them and they can download it in a PDF. I mean, it's amazing. And again, like you said, we can give them links to different places, different website places where we want them to visit to strengthen a point. Whereas we can't do that in class because, laptops, cell phones and stuff like that are very distracting in a live classroom. Whereas live online, I mean, it just works, man. It does.
Well, that's a really good point. I mean, I remember there's a time where at Capitol, we wouldn't allow laptops. We wouldn't allow people to have their phones on during class because it was very distracting. You can't always control what people are looking at, right? You can't control if somebody's looking at sports or something else right next to somebody, right? I mean, it can be super distracting. Here, like me right now, I'm doing this presentation. I have 3 different screens up. I've got assets everywhere. Somebody sends me a link and I can open the PDF and have it right here. I can have my Word, my notes document. There is a really strong case for using all of those tools to engage your students in a learning experience that actually works. Because I'm going to give one more bit of information. I know we're coming up on our time, but I want to give one more bit of information. And this is key for all you educators out there, for those people who are running schools, right? And even for instructors who understand the importance of getting people through the education, right? There's a key distinct benefit to in-person education. And generally that's course completion rates. Mm-hmm. Here's the quiet little secret, in our industry is just how many people actually complete their licensing course successfully, meaning get through all the content, pass the course final exam if it's required, and then the next step is to go and actually pass their state licensing exam, right? But if you don't complete the course, you never go on to take your state licensing exam. And the beauty, the strength of in-person appointment education, Barry, and you know this very well, has been that, at least 90% of the people who start live in-person education complete their course. Yeah. 90%.
Right. And that's and I'll tell you that's the trick right there, is to bring, again, get all the technology issues out of the way so you're not worrying about that. The only thing you're doing is instructing. All that other stuff comes secondhand. Okay, how to pull the buttons, how to pull the knobs, push the buttons, everything like that, and then engage the students, get that energy level up there, bring them in, man, and get them going and stuff like that, so they'll stay engaged throughout the entire course and complete it, just like you said.
And I'll tell you this: we last year at COVID, we jammed 3 years of change into 3 months, and I know a lot of you educators did. You had to, or you're out of business. Mm-hmm. 3 years of change into 3 months. We're still not perfect. No chance. We've learned a lot, but I can tell you this: our live online course completion rates are just now starting to approach our in-person completion rates. Right, which tells me we got a little ways to go. I mean, we're like 75 to 85% course completion rates for live online. It's trickier. It's harder. Life gets in the way. I mean, on the other side of this wall, life is going on, and when you're and somebody knocks on a door, there's an interruption. So with the distance live online education, there's much more opportunity for distraction. And if you're not engaging those students, like you said, Barry, with polls, with talking their name and getting them to talk to other students. If you're not doing that, then everything else just becomes, more important than the education. Right. And so if you're only, so that's a pretty significant drop off from 90% plus to 75 to 85%. But we all know what asynchronous is, right? Maybe somewhere around 50 to 65% course completion rates. So asynchronous, live online, in person, to be truly successful with live online, I think you could probably gauge if you've got a really good experience by how close to your in-person education is the live online course completion rates. And then what are people saying about it, right?
Right.
Yep. Right on. All right. So I know we're at our time, everybody, and we got some great questions going through, and you guys are taking care of mobile video cameras. I love it going on. Look at, they're already answering everybody's questions. If you, Barry, if you had one thing and you said, here's the most important thing about live online, because I know we talked about consistency, right? We talked about making sure you have a consistency every time you go out, it's solid. But if you had, one thing that you thought was important, the most important thing about being successful with live online, would it be the consistency maybe, or would it be technology, or would it be the connectivity, engagement? What do you think the most important thing is? Well,
from my experience, so all those things are relevant, Toby. But I think the big thing that we have to remember is that when we're sitting here, I mean, I'm down here, normally I teach from my office, but I'm down here in my man cave all by myself. But I'm not by myself because we've got 60 people in this group right now that are sharing with us. So you're there and you're live to me, and I treat you like you're live to me, and I will talk to you like you're live to me. And I mean, we just have to really learn to embrace this platform now. And again, whether it be Zoom or, Google Meet or whatever, take this online presence and be a presence online and connect with the student. And again, be prepared. Have all your stuff, all your aids on, ready to go, so you know where to go find them and everything. Make the technology a secondary thing. Make this part of it right here, where you're talking to the student and delivering content. Make this the most important part.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo that. I'm going to tell everybody right now, if for in-person education, the most important thing is generally the instructor, and for live online, the most important thing, it's not the platform, right? It's the instructor.
Yep.
That's still the most important thing. All right. Thank you, everybody. Barry Mingo, thank you a ton. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do. And you're certainly a pro, and I know it because I started with you and I've watched your career, and I thank you for your time. Everybody,
thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Absolutely. I want to thank everybody here on the webinar today. We'll talk again soon, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, guys.